Ladies and gentlemen, this is UX and this is Why Didn't the Arab World Unite? By channel History Matters. Yeah. Watch this video in, I guess, one of the United States airport and people will panic basically. Because this is the worst thing they can hear, Arab World Unite. But yeah, when so many other groups of people were united into single nations, why didn't the Arab world do the same? Were there any attempts to do so? And since they clearly didn't succeed in the long term, what happened? Okay, obviously Ottoman Empire got broken up after the World War One. British and French, basically, I think if I remember correctly, British and French were the one who kind of bordered them up deliberately. So I'm guessing they would have bordered them up in a way that there will be conflict. So that was the whole point, right? That was the whole point of them, to divide them up in a way that there is somewhat of a conflict here and there. So them being united could be an issue because of that. And I'm guessing World War II was kind of, relatively speaking, kind of quicker after World War One. It's just 1 or 2 decades, right? So after World War II, I guess if I were to think that Cold War started, I don't know how much influence Cold War had on Arab worlds, but I know that Soviet Union was kind of influencing certain part of beyond Kazakhstan and certain Afghan, right? Try to take over Afghan here and there. So I'm guessing that they were kind of sandwiched between USA and USSR, right? So they were just there was almost friction of foreigners here and there. So they didn't have luxury to think of, I guess, uniting or something. I don't know much. I don't have information on it, but this is just this is what I think it might have been, right? So, but it's going to be interesting what History Matters says here. I like History Matters because they always cover complex topics in a short period of time, like 4 minutes or something. That takes skill. So it's always fun to see. So let's do it.
Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, nationalism became a dominant force in global politics. It saw many peoples, including the Germans, the Italians, the Poles, the Bulgarians, the Romanians and the Turks, amongst many others, carve out national territories in which they and their people could live. This was because those people saw themselves and their neighbours as being part of a homogenous group. This idea that the same people should live in a single united political entity was also found throughout the Middle East and expressed itself in what's called Pan-Arabism. Since this never happened, the question is, why not, and how close did the Pan-Arabist dream come to fruition? Well, the idea of a unified Arab world started to be taken seriously in the late 19th century in opposition to Ottoman rule. During the First World War, many of these Arab nationalists rebelled against the Ottoman Empire and worked with the Entente powers to establish an independent Arab state. The Entente had agreed to this, but after the war was over, no. As such, Arab nationalism's aim continued to be the removal of imperial powers from their lands, and these nationalists were given outside help mostly from Egypt and Iraq. It wasn't until after World War II.
Look at, so basically foreigners promised them, okay, sure, we'll go along with that. And after that, we don't think so. We're not going to go with that. Isn't that surprising that after that, their main thing was just get out foreigners, right?
In the collapse of British and French rule in the region, that Pan-Arabism really started to pick up. With the Cold War raging onwards, both the USA and USSR were looking to expand their influence in the region, and for many there, this wasn't on. Because much of the Pan-Arabist ideology focused on removing all foreign influence from the region. It was also at this point that the overwhelming majority of Arab leaders, barring Lebanon, backed the creation of an Arab state. Yet this alone wasn't enough, and here we can learn from the unification of Germany, since unification was supported by most German leaders and the German people too. Yet it required several wars to achieve, and the reason why is that much like Arab leaders, the Germans agreed that a state should be made, yet they couldn't agree on who would lead it. So 1958...
Let's not forget Bismarck, right? He was damn brilliant in scheming. The level of scheming he did just to achieve that one Germany dream is no joke, right? I remember watching the series, Extra History, Extra Credits. Right, that series was awesome, talking about Otto von Bismarck and how brilliant he was, right? Bismarck always has a plan. So yeah, you kind of also need somebody like that who plans in long term, I guess, but yeah.
They arguably saw the height of Arab nationalism when 2 attempts were made at building an Arab state. The first saw Egypt and Syria merge to become the United Arab Republic under Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser. The unification came about after the people of Syria got a bit communisty. Thus, the Syrian leadership approached Nasser to unify the states and put down any potential issues. There were several problems though. The first was that Syria was mostly turned into an Egyptian colony and it had little to no voice in the Union, and also, whilst Nasser was no friend of communism, he wasn't exactly protective of the the business interest of Syria's leaders, and after numerous economic reforms, they decided that this was a bad idea, and in 1961, Syria declared its independence. The second Arab state of 1958 was the Arab Federation, made from the merger of Iraq and Jordan, whose kings were cousins. Now, this union went nowhere because both had wildly different interests and neither could decide on who would be in charge. Not that the question mattered for long, since Faisal II, the king of Iraq, was deposed in a coup shortly afterwards. After this, there was one more notable attempt, and this was
look, first of all, for one state, cousins, brothers, sisters, anybody who might be related with blood kind of try to stab each other in the back. That has been the case throughout the years when it comes to power. Now you're going to have two different states united, both are cousin, and they're going to somehow get along with the decision making. Come on, man.
1971, when a coup in Libya placed Muammar Gaddafi in charge, who promptly proposed a union with Egypt, Sudan and Syria. This was backed by both the leaders and peoples of these countries, but it fell apart where nobody could decide on the details, notably who would be in charge. And ultimately, it's this reason why the creation of an Arab state failed. The public backing had always been there, and the region's leaders had always pushed for the unification of the Arab world. The problem was that they all thought that they were going to be the ones to lead it. Combine this with differing foreign policy goals, particularly between the pro-Western Iraq and the pro-Soviet Egypt, and things get even more complicated.
I don't know why I'm picturing Eric Cartman from South Park when all these leaders meet up, right? Oh, yeah, United Arab, definitely United Arab. Who's gonna lead it? What do you mean? I'm the one who came up with the idea. No takesy backsies. I'm the one who said it, so, I get the first chance. This is fucking ridiculous. Imagine the people like, okay, you assholes represent us, right? Who cares who leads it, right? We'll decide the later. First, unite. Let's unite first. No. It's all about me, my power.
And it was these outside backers who had an interest in preventing the unification of the Arab world, since a unified Arab state would certainly have been a formidable global power, and at the height of the Cold War, nobody wanted the competition. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with a special thanks to my Patreon supporters: James Bizanet, Colin Castleman, Danny Maloney, Jordan, Spinning 3, Plexi Schwinn, Spencer Light.
Well, there you go. Yes, right? Yeah. So why didn't the Arab world unite? Well, simple thing like always, right? Even when the idea is just perfect for everybody, like everybody wants it, in the end, like who's going to lead it? And that's where it all falls apart. Nobody's ready to give up anything, right? There's rarely, there are rarely cases where certain leaders just, takes a step back for the good of the people or something. It's always like, oh, it's about my power. So who's going to lead it? No, I'm going to lead it. You're going to lead it, then there is no Arab United world. There you go. It's like, there was a video, I guess, from Real Life Lore. What if all the countries that end with Stan unite? I guess he just used the certain Middle Eastern countries. India's name is one of the... I didn't watch the video, right? I just saw the thumbnail. From that, India wasn't part of it. And one of the India's name is Hindustan. I guess it was a Persian name or something. So I don't know. That list would be much bigger. But it's something like that. But I don't see it happening now, right? With all the fucking conflict and friction. But Alright people, if you like my Rickson, don't forget to like, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.